Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here on my channel, another reading video, and of course we are going over all the books that I read in the month of August, what books I loved, what books I maybe didn't even get to on my TBR, and I hate to say this, but I only read 3 books. August was not necessarily a very great month for reading. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's video. I'm not going to go over my August TBR at all. I think I only read 2 books from that TBR and I had 5 or 6 books on there. I did not have a really great reading month. We were kind of busy off and on throughout the entire month, like every single month, but at the same time I just didn't read too much. I would read a book, I think in like 2 weeks it would take me, because I'd read like 10 pages a day and then I'd put it down and maybe read 100 pages the next day and then not really read at all, but like a page or 2 for the next couple days. So I definitely didn't do too good. It's definitely one of my lower months, and I hope it's one of my only low months for the rest of the year, since we only have a few months left, and I hope that we can finish out this year. The first book that I do want to talk about is actually a book that I almost finished in the month of July, and it was a part, I do believe, on my July TBR, and I tackled it to a point I was halfway through it when I did my wrap up, and that was actually If He Had Been With Me. I started this July 29th and read all the way until August 7th. I felt like this book in particular, I called a few things. I mean, in the very beginning, you get a prologue in a way, and there are some things that you gotta kind of remember about and think about the entire time you're reading this book. But there were some parts of this book that I was like, okay, I don't feel like the main character is really good for the guy that she's dating. I feel like she might be really bad, and then some things happened and I was like, I feel like our male main character, or not so much male main character, but the male who is dating our main character, I feel like he is necessarily portraying to be a good person, but maybe he's gonna do something bad. And there were some things that I just called and they ended up happening, and I wasn't sure which way I really wanted our main character to go. Like, it's almost in a way a love triangle, not fully, it's a little bit different, but there was a part of me that almost considered having both of the options, like which way would work out better. And then by the end of the book, there is one person in particular that I wanted our main character to be with, or not so much the very ends, but I'd say about halfway through, I just seen some things happening and I just was like, oh, you should go with this person. And of course we get to the end of the book and this happens, which, like I said, it's one of those that you kind of know in the very beginning, but as you're reading it, you kind of tend to forget, and then all of a sudden you might think back to the very beginning. So it foreshadowed. I did enjoy this. 4 stars. It was a quick little read in a way. I mean, it took me a while to read it, like a good week or 2, but at the same time I just felt like, for me, not really wanting to pick up and read, I felt like this was a good book, and also it sat on my shelf. And this was another book I got to cross off my 25 books I want to read in 2025, so there's a plus. I think that this is the only book from that list that I tackled in the month of August, so I do kind of recommend this. I am not going into the next book. I'm just going to keep this book, read this book. I actually think I'll keep it on my shelves too, but I will not be buying the next one. I don't think there's a need for it, and also I've heard so many bad things about that next book. I'm good with this book. I'm glad I tackled it. I'm gonna like cut our losses, so to say, and this is gonna probably be the one and only book from this author. Next, starting on the 8th of August and going all the way until the 16th, I actually picked up The Lightkeeper's Daughter by Colleen Cobble. I absolutely love this author. I love all of these books. I loved this entire book. It was a 4.5 star rating. I enjoy her Christian values in here. This one had a lot more Christian. It was almost like Tidewater Inn. If you know, when I read that book a few months ago, then you know how I feel about that book. And I really enjoyed our main character, the whole subplot of romance, the whole family. I love the little mystery going on in it. I loved everything in this book. It was just so good. And there are some things that in the beginning I'm like, okay, we're sitting around 1880s, and I absolutely love this time period. I love the I'd say normally in 1890s through 1910s is my favorite couple decades, but this book in particular, we're kind of following one where I thought that with the main character is a little bit weird, because the guy she ends up liking and falling in love with is technically her half-sister's husband, but her half-sister ended up dying. So it's a little bit weird in that situation, but at the same time, if you think about like to the times, it's not that weird. And also I just love their relationship. I like how they were as friends. I like a lot of things about her books in general and her subplots of romance. They're just refreshing, and being Christian, they're just so good, and they're more of like that friendship to lovers, and not necessarily like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying. If you know, you know. If you're kind of Christian, you know exactly what I'm saying. And I just enjoy these romances so much more because they're just a little bit more clean, and I don't know how to say it, just like beautiful, I guess you could say. I think this one was really interesting too, because the little boy in the story, I think he has epilepsy, but it might not have been like fully diagnosed, and so he would have seizures every once in a while, and her dog actually would sense that. And that was kind of like one of those where she kind of like slid into the family, not just as like a nanny or like a babysitter or caretaker for this little boy, but then eventually her dog became like a family friend, and part of the family itself. And I don't know, I just love the whole situation with this book. I feel like I cannot read a book from her and not absolutely love it, and I highly recommend any book from her, especially if you're Christian. This series in particular is so far one of my favorites. I think this is going to be one of those that is like a 4-star entire series, which is amazing. It's only a trilogy and I have 2 out of the 3 books, so I'm so excited to hop into the next book, which is The Lightkeeper's Bride, and they're interconnected standalones within the trilogy. Normally in all of her books, at least, you get her characters from whatever book you had just read into the continuing books, which I love because you get little snippets of like the future of their lives. I had a really fun time with this read. And finally, for my final book in the month of August, I actually picked up Mockingjay. This is the 3rd and final book of the Hunger Games. I'm sure you guys all know. I started this on the 17th and ended it on the 28th, and I absolutely loved it. Again, 4.5 stars. I think I rated Hunger Games and also Catching Fire 5 stars. I absolutely love that book. This book, it did take me a little bit longer to get into, and I still loved it, but there were some things about it that I just didn't feel like it was the 5 stars. I still really want to see both the movies. I just recently thrifted, I think it was Mockingjay Part 2. I still have to thrift Catching Fire and Part 1. I just found one of the movies, and I am so excited to actually go and try and find Catching Fire so I can finish that movie and watch Mockingjay, because reading this book, I didn't know a single thing that went on. I don't remember anything about the movies for Mockingjay in particular, and everything that happened was completely blindsiding me, which I thought was so great. And there were some things that like I could little bit call, but for the most part I felt like this was a whole story. I was jumping into it for the first time ever, which I mean I was, but I definitely didn't get that 5-star feel like I got with the first 2 books. But I love the ending of it. I know there's a little bit, I can't spoil it, but how the epilogue is, I know you get a little bit on Goodreads where people are like, oh, but she didn't want that, she never wanted that. And it's like, yeah, but you know, you kind of change as you get older, and especially with how much time she had in between when they started doing something, and then in the beginning of the Hunger Games when you're reading about other things, there is so much time in between there. I think it's like 2 decades. It's like 18 to maybe 20 years. There's plenty of time to change your mind. It's okay to change your mind. And I really enjoyed the ending of it. There are some things where I heard a little spoiler about Gale, I think a year ago or 2. So I had a few like ideas of how maybe something would happen, and I know people did not like him. I actually don't mind him. I still don't. I can see why people don't like him, but at the same time, it was one of those that I don't know, I can't spoil it, but he didn't directly do what everybody said he did. I get it's like a cause and effect type thing, but I don't know. I'm a little bit mixed on how I feel about that, because of I know how people feel. I think I understand why, just because of what happens at the end of the book. So there isn't a, you know, certain decision between, I'm just gonna say, because, and I have to delete it because it's gonna sound very spoily, but I just said it a certain way and I don't think I can put that in here. So if you know, you know. If you read this book, then you totally know. But I am so excited to go into the prequels. I want to go find them next month because my birthday is coming up in October, and I just have an idea of finding both of those and reading those. I am so intrigued to see what those are about, and then when she comes out with that 3rd and potentially final one, I want to know what that book is about and also hop into that one. I love this trilogy and I definitely recommend it, and I think the movies are so good. They're adapted so well compared to most movie adaptations, and I don't know, I feel like this is one that you could definitely read in your early adult life, your teens, your middle school, even all the way up to maybe even like midlife, I'm gonna say, and it would still really be good. 4.5 stars. You can't go wrong with the Hunger Games. So sadly, this is the only 3 books that I got to in the month of August. I did start another book and finished it the first day of September, and I'm on my 2nd book in September, so hopefully we can continue being really good. I'm hoping to get about 5 books in for September, kind of catch up a little bit since I didn't do so hot in August. But I am very thankful that these were all 4 to 4.5 star reads. I am very thankful that I enjoyed them all. Let me go ahead and talk about a few monthly statistics for the month of August. Because I read If He Had Been With Me, and that was a part of the 25 books I want to read in 2025, that brought our 13 books read up to 14, which is only 56% finished or completed. I am falling behind. I fell behind I think 2 months ago, and I just haven't picked up. Actually, I think I'm not going to get to all those books. There's a few on there I just don't feel like actually reading, and I hate to say that. I'm just not in the mood for them, at least right now. Maybe in like a month or 2 I might be, but majority of them I just don't feel like reading right now. I have a specific mindset, and I'm also trying to mood read. a little bit more with these last couple months coming. I had 78 books left on my physical TBR. That was after I deducted how many books I've read for the year and also the 6 that I'm getting rid of because I've read and accomplished 33 books for the 2025 fiscal year. I have 75 books left on my physical TBR. We are getting closer bit by bit, even with only reading 3 books. We are getting closer to that goal of 60 to 65 books on my physical TBR. However, like I said, my birthday is next month and I want to go book shopping again. So we'll see what I do. We'll see if I can also finish a lot more. Mystery is still my top genre with 6 books read. However, sci-fi is now the only book in second position with 5 books read. In total for this month, I read 3 books with a total of 1,087 pages. I had 0 5-star reads. However, The Lightkeeper's Daughter was my favorite book for the month of August. I love this book. And that is everything I have for my monthly wrap up. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you have not checked out my September TBR, go ahead and click back to that video. I just made it and posted it a few days ago. I loved it. I felt like I got a good variety for the most part. A few books that I'm really excited about. Like I said, I have started one of those books and it's probably one of the thickest ones on that list. And I'm also trying to make a reading vlog with that. So I hope to see you in another video here on my channel. And as always, God bless.